Welcome to Southwest Manuscriptors, February 2021 Zoom meeting. Today is a reading of anthology submissions to our local library, Palos Verdes Peninsula Library, WriMo program in November. And this is, I believe, the 6th year that the library has hosted it. So we have a lineup of readers. This is a carryover from readings that were presented by the library last month. And when you read, if you have the page number of your piece, please show it. And I think I'll just go ahead. This was it. This is our cover this year, and put together by Deb Ripley. And the lineup is as follows. So first up is John Edwards. So unmute. Yeah, got it.
Okay. Can you hear me okay? Okay. So The Good, the Bad, and the Journey by John Edwards, page 143, if you got the book. My father, Richard Harbin Dick Edwards, had symptoms for a year that were a mystery to his doctor. I heard that laughter is therapeutic, so I brought funny movies that we watched together, like W.C. Fields' It's a Gift, The Little Rascals, and The Three Stooges, and chatted about funny news items. But as his symptoms grew worse, Polly, my mother, who had been an RN, insisted he go to UCLA to be evaluated. There he was diagnosed with lung cancer and told he only had a few months left. I'd been busy for years and had barely talked to him about my work. So I assembled some of my performance reviews, awards, notes, and endorsements by generals so he could get an idea of what I'd been up to. I wanted him to know that his steering me into USC Environmental Engineering grad school and getting me half off tuition, since he was a professor there, had produced some good. 2 months before his death, he sent me this note. Thursday, November 12th, 1992. Dear Rick, after you left yesterday, I realized I'd spent so much time reading your awards that I hadn't congratulated you on your performance. You've been a source of much pride and pleasure to your mother and me, and I asked you for grandchildren, and you brought us 2. Your awards show exceptional talent in organizing and running big research effort. I was grateful to see that you are able to utilize the talents you have. We haven't always been parallel in our thinking, but we've loved you from the start. I know that I wasn't always a great father, but I'm impressed by the time and energy you've spent with the kids. One of the best things you've done is to have fun with them. I sincerely wish that I had done much more than I did. I wanted to let you know how much we love you and appreciate you, and to thank you for 2 wonderful kids. Keep it up, Rick, and we'll be delighted to see your progress. Much love, Dad. His note surprised me on 2 fronts. I hadn't realized that he was attuned to kids and family. Perhaps because he grew up with no father, he didn't know what to do with us. We haven't always been parallel in our thinking is a masterpiece of understatement. When I was in grammar school, if I did something wrong, Polly reported all my sins in emotionally charged detail when he got home from work. He'd become angry and kind and whip me with a belt regularly. Often my brother Rob was included. Polly also forced me into Catholic schools, which I hated. So I got myself kicked out of 2nd and 10th grade. I ran away several times. My dad and I occasionally had knockdown, drag-out fights, yelling, swearing, running brawls, crashing through doors. Our only common interests were cars and funny movies. He was into football and baseball. I loved the ocean. It wasn't all bad, but on balance, I couldn't wait to get out of the house. So I quit Palos Verdes High School, signed up to join the Navy. My sister, Chris, told me later, they signed for me to go into the Navy at 17 because they were afraid I might kill them. While I was overseas in Vietnam, life back home seemed very distant. Over nearly 5 years in the Navy, my hostility towards Dick receded into the background. He may have mellowed as well. When I came home from the Navy, he bought me a 1962 Corvette. He helped me financially so I could cover UCLA tuition tripled by Reagan. He later gave me $20,000 down payment for a townhouse in Hermosa Beach. It wasn't all financial help. When my VW camper broke down in San Luis Obispo, he drove up and towed me home. Were these offerings to offset his prior lack of parenting skills, or did I remind him of his lost brother, Bill, killed in the Pacific War? He never said as much. He was from the generation of men who didn't show emotions but signaled indirectly. My battles with my mother also subsided. While I was at sea, she mailed me chocolate chip cookies and chocolate fudge that she and Chris made. However, later she became a fundamentalist Christian and our battles flared, especially when I became director of the LA chapter of American Atheists. Prior to his illness, I hadn't spent much time with Dick, except when he was an aerospace engineering professor and I was a grad school student at USC. He gave me rides to school, peppered with career advice, and we grew closer, friendlier even. During those commutes, he even shared a secret with me that he never told Polly, that he thought religion was silly. He couldn't get why anyone would believe in any kind of gods. Shortly after receiving Dick's note, I went to their house on Via Pinzon. We sat on the back deck overlooking Torrance Airport, the drone of the airplanes in the distance. I asked him if he'd like to visit Carrizozo, New Mexico, where he was born in 1917 and had never returned. His father, an MD, had moved there because he had tuberculosis and died in 1918 when Dick was 1 year old. I told him he never wanted to go. Now would be the time. If he ever wanted to go, now would be the time. We flew to Albuquerque and stayed in Old Town. I rented a Lincoln Continental to drive to Carrizozo because it was big and comfortable for everyone. During this driving south on the open road with hours on our hands, we relaxed and chatted quietly of fleeting things. Passing the giant radio telescope antenna array at Socorro, Dick remarked that one of his professor friends ran the place. Carrizozo is a small town. We stopped at a 2-story brick building with homemade ice cream ads painted on the side. Inside was a general store with a bar converted to a soda counter. We had a round of chocolate malts instead of whiskey. Dick and I posed for a picture at the bar, and all of us posed outside of the building. We walked Main Street and arrived at a small dusty plot on the edge of town, the local cemetery. I announced I thought we should all visit Dick's father's grave. His response, he wasn't buried here, he was buried in Albuquerque. Since that didn't go over so well, we went to Santa Fe where Polly, Chris, and her son Jesse went shopping. Dick and I wound up waiting for hours in a large empty pizza parlor. We talked about random things, but not about the elephant in the room. I just remember the feeling of enjoying his company and how he relaxed into easy talk with me. We both knew we wouldn't have many more times like this. Back home, we had our last family Christmas gathering all together. Shortly after that, he was hospitalized and never came home. We had a large memorial for him at Green Hills Mortuary in San Pedro. Dick liked the idea of burial at sea because his brother Bill died in World War II in a B-24 bomber, crashing into the Pacific Ocean near Yap Island. Dick said molecules of the ocean would eventually mix and travel to oceans around the world, so he could join Bill there. My brother and I scattered his ashes at sea from a boat off the cliffs of Palos Verdes. 20 months later, we scattered my mother's ashes at the same spot to join them both. During the COVID-19 pandemic, I've been home going through boxes of old papers. I found a note that Polly wrote to me 27 years ago, 3 weeks after Dick died. I don't remember ever seeing it before, but it seemed like a good bookend to my father's note all those years ago. February 16th, 1993. Dearest Rick, I don't know where to start. You've done so much. I'm so glad you arranged a trip for all of us to New Mexico and took care of all the details. We would have taken so long to make decisions that we probably wouldn't have gone. I'm so glad you spent so much time visiting your dad and bringing him little gifts. He knew you were trying to say, I love you, and he was touched. I'm glad you bought him that expensive jogging suit, even though you knew he probably wouldn't have long to enjoy it. I'm glad you spent all those nights at the hospital so he wasn't alone. I'm glad you gave him that extravagant watch. He knew what you were saying, and thank you for your much needed support making the funeral arrangements. I know you must be tired a lot of the time, and yet you don't complain about the many demands on you. So like your dad, thanks for everything, my dear firstborn. You are a son to be proud of, and we are, and I am. Thank you for taking the boat trip. We've had our battles, but we've always loved you and always will, Mom. The end.
That was beautiful. Thank you, John. That's really,
You're
oh my
welcome.
gosh. You can tell when stories are real from the heart.
Very nice.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, so Janice, can you turn off your video, please?
Oh,
And
you want it off?
and go ahead and
Okay.
mute yourself. Thank you. All right, next up is Jennifer Po Chue.
Medical is en route. Describe victim. Controlled fires continue throughout the free cities after war's end, leaving in their wake scars of ash over clean asphalt. Despite the best efforts of clean city sweepers, Area 5 streets are fleshy and host gaping wounds where even the most thorough of evacuations leave blood spattered congealed into the gray. The soot is covering the victim's hair so thick that its hue is unclear under the night sky. Even 2021 can be fooled under perfect midnight. Patrol drones successfully identify corpses and genogram 96.99% of evacs in the big three. 3%er, Marcus's eyes are inflamed from the grime. NYPD issued SAMIs do little to shield from particle contaminants from entering the eyes due to their shoddy offshore manufacturing. The body is small. Half her face looks like it's been kicked in by a tire iron. Copy, says dispatch. In cases when the victim cannot be identified, officers are instructed to chart the doe as an evac and prepare transfer handoff to medical and clean city vessels after the patrol drone has secured the area. Reformation de-escalation policy means no officer contact, no resuscitation. In hindsight, Nichols believes this is probably one of the worst procedural efforts enforced by Run Rabbit post-incorporation. 3% seems like a very small amount of folks, but granted the LME's population size, it's massive. The number of unidentifiable victims is growing at an exponential rate in the DMZ and WASH areas alike. The free cities are rife with unidentifiable deceased. Alcatraz 2020. I'll eat in the darkness tonight, so I won't see my reflection. I'll put out a place for you, like I did last night and the night before. I'll eat in the darkness tonight, like I did last night and the night before. I'm offline. It's the cleanest and safest city in the world, Nichols smiles. Plus they'd put me up on cleanup crew. Marcus pauses and smiles back. It always grants him solace to hear his partner hopeful. No more bad days and lost wages, he concludes. He adds, well, until you're out tanning at Aria with a Mai Tai in one hand and your 45 in the other, you're stuck with me, kid. The patrol unit assumes the cue and engages in autopilot. Anderson's regular patrol car smells like solder, old blood, and zebra stripe gum. Today, he's in one of the newer models, a gift from Rabbit's new lot, fresh out of Pennsylvania. US Steel is back. As much as he tries to keep his cars clean, he always seems to end up in a unit from a maid with a sugar tooth or an officer who's trying to kick a habit. It wouldn't surprise him if the cop that had this ride before him hadn't given up once or twice and found himself downing the G-issued gummies in the glove box in an effort to curb hunger pains that fivers get on details. In Rabbit's advertising tonality, happy patrol officers equals a secure fleet. Still, Anderson couldn't ask for a better place to hang up his vest at night. We got a positive at First and St. Mark's. Looks like a charmer. Nichols mics. Anderson sings, "It's magically delicious." The streets of New York have never been cleaner. As he steps out of his patrol car, the frigid air gashes Marcus's ebony skin like knives. There are some moments he misses Orange County, but the weather is the only reason. When a murderer strikes a spot whose streets are swept immaculate bi-hourly, it seems as if the perp is either dancing with the devil or begging for an absolution. Some criminals leave a trail of lust in hopes of being seen. Theirs is a blatant cry for attention. Nothing surprises service members in the free cities anymore, and it takes a little more than a gimmick to impress them. It's frustrating that the press pays more attention to the criminals than it does the evacs just trying to get by, or the officers keeping them safe. But that's the way it's always been, the news. Anderson thinks aloud, eyeing the headline on the paper box left over from the blackout. The boxes are sprinkled throughout the city like little metal memorials of war. Some are current, but most have since transformed into permanent, ironic art figurines. The headline reads in bold typeface, "Stand together, apart. Crime, division, and chaos are popular. Fear is entertainment." The drone returns and Marcus's vise lights up 27 on the exterior, indicating the number of warrants observable on scene. Like a neon game of Indian poker, the tally or count software is one of the most controversial technologies endorsed by Rabbit. The neon brights sprawl heavily across the entire face shield on all her public-facing patrol helmets. It not only makes an officer highly visible to suspects while on patrol, but it also makes the officer in pursuit vulnerable to attackers and prone to assassination. The big green block numbers descend on successful arrests served only once the arrested is identified by drone and apprehended, making the logic behind the tally inherently crippled by the very technologies that prerequisite its processes. Yet again, what's manufactured to protect the consumer comes to a grave and oftentimes fatal disadvantage to the force. "But man, did I do look good though?" Anderson mics Nichols, signaling the scene is ready to penetrate. He doesn't like the tally as much as the next fiver or cop working an incorporated zone, but he does admit that watching review footage of officers in action is made entertaining by the helmets lighting up and counting down across an aerial. It's a sea of stars, sprawled and spreading out in perfect unison, ticking down like Fibonacci icicles. 27, damn son, hope they enjoy our services. Had Teresa known that would be her final exchange with Disneyland, she may be thinking of something nicer to say to the kid. She might even tell him the real reason she's retiring in Las Vegas. Hell, she might drop everything right now and pull a bullet from his brain and put it in her heart so that it may take her life instead of his. Luckily for Sergeant Nichols, Marcus Anderson is always wax poetic for the lot of them in the sticks. For Zamar Jones. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. That was beautifully composed and recited. Thank you very much. All right, next up is Gwen Fleischer.
It's Gwendolyn.
Gwendolyn.
Yeah, only people that don't like me call that 4-letter word.
And Jennifer, lovely voice. You have an extremely lovely voice and we want to do voiceover.
Oh, that's incredible to hear. Thank you.
Okay, my reading starts on page 83, going from wonderful prose to some poetry. Devil's Waltz. Here's a scene. Look. From her canopied boudoir, white sage awakes her spirit. Lavender scents her mortal being. Midnight comes the hour. She gently glides outdoors to open spaces. Heady perfume of gardenia, honeysuckle's intoxication, fills the glen with sweet ambrosia. Le jardin et le lapin. Full harvest moon in a high ascendance, with terpsichorean trepidation, cleanly executes her pliés, jetés, pirouettes, ronde-jambes, and arabesques. She leaps and darts, arms outstretched to catch translucent moonshine rays effulgent in her filigree diaphanous peignoir, golden gossamer shining shimmers. It was the witching hour that claimed her poor heart's rapture. Her pirouettes accelerated madly, dancing the devil's waltz with her unseen spirit love. Perfect poetry in motion, perfect pas de deux. Morning haze came with much swiftness. She was found in her canopied boudoir, revels in the afterglow, joie de vivre still all aglow. She spoke not of that evening, her soul unconstrained and free, her senses in flames burning, her passions blaze deep within. And the second poem is called Frayed Boots, on page 86. To a little girl, he loomed larger than life. He filled the room with energy, Tennessee Ernie Ford's doppelganger. By day, he wore denim overalls, like Engineer Bill, constructing houses and government buildings. After dinner at Barbecue Pete's or Hodie's, he loved shopping at Silverwood's or Desmond's for a houndstooth jacket, long after they were out of style. He listened to a young girl's writings of sadness and suicide. At least he listened. For a man who hated them all, he was a genius, picking out unique, one-of-a-kind birthday and Christmas gifts. Then, his dad died. Greed tore the family asunder as the young girls watched. He became a real estate agent, parties up the hill, booze flowed freely, drowning, assuaging his guilt. His energy now a heavy cloud of doom, sucking the life out of a room. Stopping the booze was to him willpower. Pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. But they were too frayed. And the last is a little short haiku. Squirrel. Squirrel pats the pages with red magnolia seed pods ready for winter's musing. The end.
Gwendolyn, those were beautiful. Thank you so much. I really admire you poets because I'm not one of them. But
Thank
I
you.
really, it's such an art. All right, next up we have Nely Go.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'm sharing kind of like an autobiography based on the mysteries of the Rosary. So I kind of parallel what my experiences are in the Bible. So, first glorious mystery, resurrection of Jesus from the dead. So if you have been raised with Christ, seek the things that are above, where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. From Colossians 3, chapter 1. I have always liked working for the Catholic Church as a faithful servant of God, starting as a catechist in second-year college until coming to California and working as a director of faith formation at St. Jerome Church in Los Angeles. I retired from full-time church work last June, marking my 40th anniversary as a Salesian cooperator also. But the love of Christ compels me to share God's word, which is Jesus. So I continue in my ministry as a catechist consultant trainer at St. Lucie Church in Long Beach, as well as a lector at Nativity Church Torrance and St. Margaret Mary Church, Lomita. I am also a Eucharistic minister and involved in Bible study groups at St. John Vianney Church, Hacienda Heights, and St. Margaret Mary, Lomita. I continue my freelance work as a pastoral care counselor, spiritual director, and Stephen ministry in the Los Angeles County. My mission is to give joy and hope to everyone I encounter as I see the risen Christ in each person. This is on page 103, I forgot to mention. Second glorious mystery, ascension of Jesus into heaven. No one has ascended into heaven except the one who descended from heaven, the Son of Man. John chapter 3, verse 13. My last two plane trips to Detroit, Michigan in spring and summer 2009 were great. I attended the National Conference for Catechetical Leaders in Dearborn, Michigan in April and visited with friends from the Catholic Alumni Club. Michael brought me to a beautiful St. Hugo Church in Bloomfield Hills, and we went sailing in his boat with friends. Tom brought me to the Ford Museum for a great adventure. In June, I participated in a week study of Mark's Gospel at Sacred Heart Seminary and a weekend at Manresa Jesuit Retreat House, plus a Franciscan retreat with the Sisters of Detroit at Washington, Michigan. In April 2010, I joined the Spiritual Directors International Conference in San Francisco. Glad to visit my cousin Ferdinand and wife Vicky and getting to know Adriana and Dean as I slept in the children's bedroom in Daly City. I was delighted to visit 2 Catholic churches and get 2 restaurant ads when I asked the parish staff for referrals in church bulletin advertisement as I was a consultant for J.S. Paluk Company. I was able to recruit Vicky to sell Avon. Then I flew to Las Vegas for double conferences in Avon and the National Conference for Catechetical Leaders. On August 7 to 9, 2018, Mom and I did a pilgrimage to St. Louis Cathedral, Our Lady of Prompt Succor, St. Jude, St. Anthony, and St. Joseph churches in New Orleans, Louisiana. We attended a free Fifth Encuentro weekend in Grapevine, Texas, with Archbishop Gomez and over 300 delegates from Los Angeles on September 2018. On May 19, 2019, I flew to Chicago, Illinois for a week of paid training, free hotel room and meals when I got hired at Combined Insurance Company of America. So grateful to be able to have a free trip to Alabama on October 2019 due to volunteer work as a catechist consultant and coordinator of the pilgrimage formed by Father Budi Wardana to EWTN, the Eternal Word Television Network. We were 46 Christians from 8 different churches who became TV audiences on October 7, 7 a.m. Mass, and 12 noon show of Jim and Joy on October 7 and 9. We stayed at the Benedictine Abbey dormitory, saw wonderful artwork of mini churches built by a monk, prayed at Sacred Heart Church, and visited the mini Medjugorje Blessed Field and School. Third glorious mystery, descent of the Holy Spirit upon the apostles. God's love has been poured out into our hearts through the Holy Spirit that has been given to us, from Romans 5, verse 5. This March 19, 2020, Feast Day of St. Joseph, marks the first day of lockdown in LA County due to the coronavirus pandemic. We were like the first apostles, locked in the upper room, praying for God's help. As an insurance agent, I can only do telephonic sales. It was harder to sell over the phone to people who had never seen you, but it became easier to sell to acquaintances who live far away in California. Thankful to Cecil Apostol for buying 4 accident protector policies for caregivers in Lomita, and then 3 accident and sickness protector policies for the ones in Redwood City. I was laid off from May to September when I did not meet my sales quota. This October 2nd, I was brought back to start selling to employers the supplemental group insurance besides our core products. Starting November 2nd, LA County was once again closed to face-to-face sales, so telephonic sales is back again and may be here to stay for a longer period of time till 2021 due to the rise in COVID-19 cases. I believe in the love of God who keeps us safe from harm, so I am not complaining. Fourth glorious mystery, Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary to heaven. A great portent appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. From Revelation 12, verse 1. Many people feel like the end of the world is fast approaching due to fires, earthquakes, floods, violence all over, and the controversial US elections on top of this pandemic that killed millions of people all over the world. We entrust our lives to the Sacred Hearts of Jesus and Mary, who loves us all. I pray the rosary every day as a devotional and sustaining prayer in the battle against the evil one. I attend daily mass either in person or online as my primary praise and thanksgiving to God. Last October 13, I started a virtual retreat with 16 cornerstone sisters from American Martyrs Church for 6 weeks on Joyce Rapp Open the Door book. It was a wonderful experience of knowing myself better and being more open through new prayers, meditation, music, drawing, and journaling. Mary is the mother who comforts us, the mother of consolation who accompanies us on the journey. She struggles with us, sustains Christians in their fight against the forces of evil, as she is the first of the redeemed. I am so blessed that my own mother, Feli, lives with me in Torrance. She likes to cook different Chinese dishes and plant flowers and veggies in our small patio garden. Happy
Nely,
that my...
thank you so much. It's been over the time. Sorry. Thank you. We
Okay.
appreciate it. Next up is Bea Walker.
Okay. I'm going to read Ducks and my story is on page 11. However, this is an abridged version, so it won't track as well as it might. Here's the bread, Grand Lou. Is Maddie ready? Let's get the stroller. I can walk to the pond, but Maddie can't walk that far. The threesome set off for the pond on the tree-lined, whoops, I'm off video, excuse me.
Yes. Excuse me a minute. Janice. Yes, Janice, could you please be aware when your video is on? Thank you.
It's not on.
Okay, well, okay, all right.
The mute is.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Bea. Go ahead and start over, please.
Yeah, I will start over.
Yes.
Here's the bread, Grand Lou. Is Maddie ready? Let's get the stroller. I can walk to the pond, but Maddie can't walk that far. The threesome set off for the pond on the tree-lined trail. Ablaze in reds, oranges, and yellows, leaves clung to the branches, some parachuting down and blanketing the path. Sally skipped along, kicking the leaves with pleasure, swinging the bag of bread. Maddie remained silent in wide-eyed wonder. Grandma Lucy pushed the stroller contentedly. We're almost there. Last time there was a mama duck with her babies. I love ducks. Long ago, Lucy remembered Cy telling her that he felt like an eagle among ducks, as if ducks were a rather sad thing to be. Eagles were clearly more superior in his mind. Sally chattered away, picking up leaves. Oh, look, Grandloo, this is my favorite, holding up an orange leaf. 3 steps later, she held up a red one. No, this one is my favorite. Grandloo handed her a yellow one. Oh, that one too. She held them in a bouquet. I love them all. Lucy spied the pond sparkling through the trees. Look, Grandloo, see all the ducks? I told you. Now Maddie had come to life. Ducks, ducks, she repeated, struggling to get out of the stroller. Maddie, feed ducks. Lucy lifted her out and they went to the edge of the dock. Already, some of the more alert ducks swam over to them, anticipating a feast. The girls took small fistfuls from the bag and cast the bread out onto the pond. That was an all call for the ducks, and the glassy water was shattered with splashing ripples as the ducks raced up to gobble up the crusts. One duck was slower than the rest. The fastest duck greedily snatched away food from the others. The slow duck couldn't get any. Grand Lou, see that poor little duck? Let's make sure he gets some of our bread. Lucy noticed that one of its legs were injured. Again and again, they attempted to throw bread directly in its path, but the fast duck snatched it first. Finally, they tricked the speedy one. Granlu and Maddie fed ducks on one side of the dock until most of the ducks had paddled over. Then Sally threw crumbs to the injured duck, who trailed far behind. The fast duck was too busy stealing away crumbs from the others to notice Sally was feeding the one straggler. When the bread was gone, all the ducks floated off peacefully. It's not fair, Granlu. That one duck was greedy and the slow duck hardly got any. That's not fair. It's the way it is with ducks, Sally. Some get more and some have a harder time. They all fight when we feed them. We had enough bread for all of them. Why do they do that? Well, maybe it's like a game or a race. They each want to win to get a prize. Now the game is over and they're getting along again. It's fun to feed them, but they don't need our bread. Even the injured ones can find enough food here at the pond. I wish they wouldn't get so crazy. Yes, I wish that too. Oh, look, Granlu, there's the mama duck I was telling you about with her babies. Where has she been? The mother duck had 6 ducklings following behind in a neat row, leaving a single wake in the water. Maybe she didn't want her babies and all that scrambling for bread. She kept them safe. They have enough to eat. They don't need our bread. And bread isn't the best thing for growing ducks to be eating. Mama ducks look after their babies. Lucy thought of her family, her grown children, and her grandchildren. She thought of ducks and eagles. Eagles majestically soared in the skies, dominating their territory, alert and searching. Predatory loners at the top of the food chain. In an undisturbed habitat, ducks lived peacefully, traveling seasonally to favorite wetlands. They were community dwellers, sometimes competitive, and some were stronger than others. That's just the way it is, thought Lucy wistfully to herself. And I'm more of a duck than an eagle, and that is fine with me. Grandlu, I love ducks. Me too, Sally.
Oh, that was enjoyable. Thank you so much. Next up, we have, okay, Bess, I guess that was you, huh, John? I have Bess Wiley. So next up will be Jennifer Townsend.
No, oh, I'm confused.
Turn on the video.
Oh,
We're both doing our stories, but he did his.
thank you. Thank you. Why don't you, okay. I got mixed up. Bess, why don't you go ahead and go ahead. Go ahead and if you want to go ahead and do it now. And then Jennifer, we'll have you be after Bess if you don't mind.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Get out of the sun. All right.
Oh.
My story is on page 139, and it's from a series of stories that I've written on a collection on about coronavirus. He's in one of my rooms. I pay more attention to it now, especially because his room's glass door is closest to the nurse's station, which faces the automatic doors I push my cleaning cart through. When I key the automatic doors to the ICU, I see him right away from there as the doors breathe open. I feel the negative pressure ruffle the gown's paper against my clothes. Most don't have time to feel it, but I do. We're all green, blue, white paper space puppets, but we still recognize docs, nurses, techs, staff, even me and cleanup. Everything's faster in here, no time to catch up on anything or anyone other than the dying. So I stay out of everybody's way and clean wherever they aren't. When I peek into his room, the machines and tubes feed into his coming corpse on the bed. He gets his own room mostly because he's been here 85 days, longer than anyone else so far. Plus it's Cedars where the money and stars come. You can barely tell what he looks like anymore because his face is deformed and stretched, covered with tape, holding tubes jammed into his head. He's got IV machines clustered around his bed like alien guards, blinking and purring the meds into his bruised arms and belly. Catheters bleed out into sacks of brine. The nursing staff won't tell me anything about him because I'm in services, but I know plenty. I figured it out. I scrolled Instagram and Twitter in my comet closet, and there he was, tap dancing with Savion Glover and singing like the future's at his feet. It's some kind of workshop, tapping, stomping to a number from Shuffle Along. I recognize the routines, mostly because my Auntie Ida used to perform on Broadway, back in the chorus. She's the one who got me into dance. I can tell he was so much better than she'd ever been. Watching him and Savion on my phone, it was their ease at it, improv and hip moves that made them float and made me laugh. When I clean the room around him, I can barely see him because they flipped him over onto his stomach to help him breathe better, even though the ventilator is doing the breathing. I see the tattoo of his baby's name, Izzy, on his wrist, still visible over the bruising. It's the same tattoo that's on his Insta. The monster Rona made the doctors start carving on him. It started with mini strokes and then clots. His feet turned yellow-purple as they swelled. Then one foot turned gray-black. He wasn't there yesterday when I showed up for my shift, so I thought he'd died. But no, not yet, Carol said. As ACU charge nurse, Carol's always cracking wise. She's the one who came up with Monster Rona. But she was so mad when I asked, it turned into that fucking Rona. She's not getting him. We both liked him. She didn't say anything when I stayed late outside the ward, pacing in the hallway till they brought him back. This is the first time I'd ever had a chance to look at the art on the walls. So much money in that place. They get the top flight stuff like it's nothing to drop millions in a hallway people just rush through to visit their dying. I was half dreaming of another life, staring at a black and white of Garland and Rooney smoking at rehearsal when I heard the orderlies wheeling a gurney around the corner. We're all robed like nuclear zombies, so there's no real way to see each other proper. But when I see his face on the gurney wheeling by, I know it's him. His legs gone. As I drive home through empty Baldwin Hills to Ida's bungalow in Gardena, seems like the only good thing is the traffic, nearly none. When I get there, routine's the same: undress in the garage, run naked inside to scrub and hot soap, then stay awake. I make Ida hide in her bedroom, and we holler at each other, catching up on our day. It drives us crazy. I know she's lonely, but none of the neighbors want to talk to her because they know where I work and what I do, and they think I'll infect her and them. But I'm probably the safest person they know. When I'm all clean and naked in the kitchen, I'll eat Cheerios and watch anything but the news. A helicopter will thwack by overhead heading for protests, and I'll wait for morning to start over in the only place where there's contact. Trudging back in, you'd think it'd be quiet, but you'd be wrong. Cedars is like a future town, all indoors. It takes forever to get from one tower to another. Just by walking from staff parking to anywhere, you're covering blocks, but all inside. And you can tell what's happening since you left. And today what's happening is that it's worse. ERs overflowing with sick, gurneys lining hallways, and in one ward, even more sick, even more racket. Pushing the cleaning cart back into the ward, I look for him right away. There he is, Savion's pal, still hanging in, still fighting from the inside out. And when I go in his room, it's almost like this is the place where I actually can see Monster Rona just sitting on his bed, casual, shedding sprinkles onto the IV machines, draping over tubes going into him, waiting to land on the next body to ooze into the wet stuff and grow there too. I'm here to stop it. All the whirring and beeping of the boxes give him little twitches. I want to clean the tubes, but I can't. No one does it. The nurses clean him, they clean his bed, they swap out the tubes for me to throw away, and I clean everything else, but no one cleans the tubes while they're connected to him, which I don't think is right. The closer I get to him, the harder it is to look at him now. He's become so much smaller than in his pictures and TikTok routines. His iPad is tie wrapped to the bed guard. His wife and Izzy baby smile, frozen, staring into the tiny screen of his IV guardians. Sometimes Carol or another nurse turns the iPad on and lets his wife and baby talk to him or sing to him. Today she reads a story to their little Izzy while he lies there seeing nothing, maybe hearing. The story's about 5 monkeys jumping on a bed. Izzy's laughing. It's relaxing to hear them while I clean. I pull the hazard bag out of the support can in his room and jam it into the larger bin on my cart, and like that, I can seal it up inside. Then unfold a fresh bag for the can and tie the red knot that holds it to the brim. I wheel the cart out of the room. The hazard bag bulges with corona waste. I feel its invisible cloud moving like smoke all around me, out the ward, down the hazard elevator, outside to the waste dock off 3rd Street, and leave it there. It's crack of dawn again, and the fog from the oceans all the way over here, blanketing everything gray and muffling streets. I've got time to go to the parking lot for my break. Fog tumbles between the open levels overlooking Burns and Alden drives. I feel smothered. I have to get to my truck. I rip off the PPE and the hairnet just so I can rest on the seat for a minute to disinfect again and vape. I check my phone for that routine he put down, stare at his body and legs flying on TikTok. I know why his wife loves him, with legs like that and the way he places his hands in the air like deep sea satellites. Auntie Ida tried to show me that once, but I never understood why the hand had to be just so. For balance, baby, beauty, she laughed, and if she liked the way I did it, she'd kiss my cheek, squealing with pride, then smudge off the lipstick. But I've got another 8 hours on my shift after this break, a few minutes left, so I crank up the sounds in the parking lot and hip hop my routine to shake it all off, to stop thinking about cleaning death, to find a patch of music in me, trying to get his TikTok routine down, Childish Gambino's This Is America. But he's doing it to a Running Man, Cool Modi combo and tapping it like he did with Savion. What? Damn, he would have been so happy. But now if he wakes, he'll see his leg is gone. Hector putters up in his electric security cart, jumps out to jam to my music, and we fall into a groove by my truck. Above the empty streets, sci-fi fog rolling in, boosting the bass bounce as we laugh and huff the moves harder and harder into our masks. When we stop to catch a breath, he gasps at me. How's your boy in there? Gonna make it out? I need to rub the sweat off. I'm so burnt. I reach for my towel and bury my face. I can barely hear Hector mutter something, then sigh and put her off. When I look up, I know it's time to get back. I grab my stuff and heading in, beep the truck lock over my shoulder, still sweating. Somehow I forget Monster Rona survives. It's on my face and I rub it into my eyes. The end.
Wow, very current, very powerful. Thank you so much. Next up is Jennifer Townsend. Jennifer, are you with us? I guess not. Let's see. I don't see. All right, Dean Okamura, please. You're up next.
Hi, everybody. I don't have the anthology, so I don't know what page it is. And I'm also going to be reading a shorter version, but it pretty much follows the text. It's called Do Not Forget to Show Hospitality to Strangers. Okay, here we go. Doña Rosa Benitez and her daughter Sofia were visiting the United States from Paraguay. They spoke Castellano, Spanish, Guarani, indigenous language, and English. Sofia spoke excellent English. She attended the American school with other affluent Paraguayans and children of diplomats. Doña Rosa was a teacher's aide at the American school. Their relatives suggested a visit to an American Protestant church. Although Doña Rosa was muy católica, she agreed. The two women wore masks since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. A sign at Los Angeles International Airport drew their attention. Use mascarilla, lávese las manos, mantenga distancia. People in America use the word mascarilla, while back home they use the word barbijo for mask. So on the Sunday after Thanksgiving Day, the Paraguayas entered a large church named Without Limits International Church. People in the chapel spoke in loud voices. It sounded like a cattle stampede. The visitors drifted to the last row. Doña Rosa and Sofia could not hear themselves think. Over time, bits and pieces of conversations escaped out of the herd. Most church attendees were Trump supporters. Doña Rosa and Sofia's relatives did not prepare them for this visit. Got the Rona. Rona is short for coronavirus. It's no big deal. I have no symptoms at all, none. The young man spoke for 2 straight minutes, then gasped and took 3 shallow breaths. See, the flu is not bad. A little sniffle, right? Doña Rosa looked at her mother with astonishment. These discussions were so different from what they heard back home. Then a voice from another row said, I got COVID-19 because I let my guard down. It put me in the hospital. It's the worst illness you can get. Everyone should follow CDC guidelines. In public, no matter where you are, wear a mask to protect yourselves and others. I was wrong. A lady tapped Sophia on the shoulder and she said, the Supreme Court says we can meet for church. You do not have to wear a mask. We're safe here. Sophia said to Doña Rosa, Dios mío, la gente no usa barbijo. Oh my God, people don't wear masks. A lady heard them speaking Spanish. She asked, did you get to spend a nice Thanksgiving in America? I guess you don't have Thanksgiving in Mexico. Doña Rosa saw Sophia's anger and frustration. She grabbed her hand to stop her from responding. It was not the first time someone assumed they were Mexican because they spoke Spanish. Doña Rosa said, sorry, my English not very good. The crowd got louder and louder as the room got fuller and fuller. There were still 5 minutes before the start of service. Doña Rosa lost her patience and said, Opa, ya. That's Guarani for that was enough, let's go. That day, the Paraguayas left the church wondering what just happened. Thank you.
Also very pertinent and current. Thank you so much, Dean. Appreciate that. Okay, next up, we have Janice Lukstein. Take it away, Janice.
And I'm not sure what my camera's doing. Oh,
We see
there
you
I
up in the
am.
corner. Yes, there you are. At least it's better than nothing.
And I have a virtual. Where was it? 160?
One page. What is your page?
160.
No, mine's 160.
Well, then I'm 165. Let me see.
You're before or after?
Okay,
I'm 160.
that's yours. Sorry, we're sharing. Okay. Fun teaching my cousin Darwin to dance. Okay. Fun teaching my cousin to dance at my Aunt Barbara's and Uncle Jack's house in Lawndale so their son could go to his high school formal in 1965. Wow. What is that? 35 years ago. Hard to believe. Although my cousin Darwin was an excellent musician, he didn't know how to dance. He didn't know how to feel it in his body. My minor in college was dance because I always loved to dance and would dance around the house and sing in the shower. Darwin had a girlfriend he wanted to take to a dance and needed to learn how to dance. So my Aunt Barbara called me up and asked me if I would teach Darwin to dance. So I went to my Aunt Barbara's and Uncle Jack's house in Lenox. He wasn't athletic and didn't feel the beat of the music. In those days, we danced the bunny hop. That you put your right foot to the right side and then the left to the left side, singing da 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 da. Sing along if you'd like to. Da 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 da. Hop hop hop. And then, ooh, the hands on the hips of the person in front of you, which was usually the opposite sex. Jump forward thrice and say hop hop hop. When I was reading at the library presentation, Debbie got right into it and sang hop, hop, hop along with me. So feel free to do that too. Oh, I must confess, I was sort of pushing him around in a playful way. He was a good sport. And my Aunt Barbara, who was very athletic and felt the music, she said, I want to do that too. That looks like fun. Come on and join us, Barbara. Next, we had to practice slow dancing, holding hands. His hand was sweating. So we did a couple of turns, which were fun too. This was a nice memory to remember, and I chose to move on. I would like to move back a page or two to where I was talking about that I'm not really a formal person, not a debutante, really not into dating, so I can count on one hand the one formal date, the prom I went to in high school, Torrance High School, and then plus one at El Camino after I met Larry, my first husband. I remember specifically asking my high school date, Jack, John, Tweety. A nice guy, but come on, give him a better name. To give me a beautiful, sweet, cream-colored gardenia as my flower for the Torrance High School junior prom in 1963. My mother also wore gardenias for formal occasions. Then there was my first dozen red roses from Big Ed of the El Camino mixed doubles tennis team when he went into the Army. What? I asked him why he had sent me them, and he said he thought of me as his sweetheart, like the other fellows who were sending roses, a dozen roses to their sweethearts. So when he returned home, it was natural for him to ask me for a date. I didn't really want to, but my mom said, come on, you at least deserve to go out with him. You did get a dozen roses. Okay, I agreed. So he took me to the famous Reef restaurant in Malibu and his dad's Lincoln Continental to eat oysters, which he liked since he thought the raw, jiggly seafood was an aphrodisiac. I didn't even know that. He kept trying to force me to eat the oysters, which he had ordered for me, but they were too jiggly, raw, gooey for me. I told him if he kept trying to force it into my mouth, I would throw it up all over him and make a big scene. So finally he got my message and stopped. Also, when my daughter Christina was marrying Richard about 12 years ago in 2008, I made sure that all of the significant mothers like me, the mother of the bride, my mother, her grandmother, the grandmother of the bride, and the mother of the groom to receive beautiful, sweet gardenias. The gardenia grabs me at the wedding. I pull it off to inhale again. Ah. Oh. What's my time?
I think you're about there.
Okay. Just a little more or no?
Yeah, because I had someone on here that didn't show up. So yeah, just maybe
Okay,
about another half minute.
It'll be just a little more.
Okay.
There were several others to make 10 plus sweet gardenias, then roses or white carnation boutonnieres for the fellows, plus a variety of flowers in the bridesmaid bouquets and the wedding, my bouquet. My first wedding was much simpler to Larry, who was a year older and since has passed on. The good news was that my folk dancing friend Elsie Watkins met Larry's brother James, Jimmy Charlesworth, during the wedding plans and then ended up marrying him. And they're still married. Did much better than with Larry, who didn't practice his vows he took. That was good news, especially since Larry broke my heart with his unfaithfulness and we divorced. He filled out the forms. Yes, I also had gardenias for that wedding in 1970 at the Torrance Methodist Church, right across from Torrance High School, actually diagonal, with its beautiful stained glass windows, since my mother had been raised a Methodist. The church was near downtown Torrance, across from the park, and Torrance High School on Carson Boulevard. Then the good news, my grandmother said, you will find someone who really will truly love you. And after 7 years of dating, my second wedding was to Ed. I had little baby's breath flowers in my hair like a large bird's nest. My film club friend Frank Anderson shot the Super 8 sound movie, which we had on, the location was on the Tall Ship, a 90-foot square rigged Buccaneer Queen used as a black pearl in Pirates of the Caribbean. We lugged his movie to Germany to show relatives. The graphic arts teacher at Carnegie Middle School printed fun wedding invitations with overflowing passengers in lively, funny versions of the sailing Tall Ship out of the Ports o' Call in San Pedro, California. You know what? I wanted to have a renewal of vows, but my husband said no, but I understand that the ship is now down in Baja, California at the Sea of Cortez. And I still hope, I hold the thought that someday when it's safer, when there's no COVID-19, that we'll be able to renew our vows.
That would be
Thanks for
something to
listening.
look forward to. Thank you, Janice.
Okay. All right.
Next up is Sharon Yee.
Yay, Sharon.
And you guys are, I don't know if you may need to move places. I don't know how you're going to do that with both of you there. but
Oh, yeah.
to be able to be seen.
Oh, I'll move the camera. Yeah, we're together here. Let me see. Okay, Sharon. There you are.
Yeah, that sounds good. Janice, yeah, thank you. That's great. Take it away, Sharon.
Okay, I have a little bit of background to say that it's about my grandmother.
I tell you what, wait a minute before you get started. Janice, I'm sorry. Do you mind moving out of the screen?
Yeah, Sharon may have to hold this because the camera's.
Oh, can I hold the camera too?
She's jumping it all
Yes,
over
you
the
can
place.
stand on your head and pat your belly.
Actually, if you could sit or something in one place.
I'm moving, but yeah, I'm going to move.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Sharon.
You can see it. So this story of my grandmother took place in Fowler, California, which is a small town in the San Joaquin Valley, about 9 miles south of Fresno. And before she was born in 1817, they already had people setting fires to Chinese settlements. So she was born in 1885 in Madera, California. So one night, Emma was up during the night, peacefully nursing her baby girl, Mabel, my mother. Suddenly she heard harsh voices outside. Heavy smoke was flowing down the street. The houses were on fire. Men with torches were rushing by. Emma wrapped her baby in a blanket. Running to the bedrooms, she woke her 4 children, ages 9 to 2, and got them out quickly. Grandpa used a garden hose to fight the fire, so they didn't completely get burned out. Grandma put her baby under the tree with the older children and ran back to save her greatly valued treadle sewing machine. that she needed to make all the family's clothes. She was a hero to her family for her actions. Homes were destroyed in Chinatown. Many perished in the fires. So I wrote a little haiku about that. It's at the bottom of the page 160. Nursing mother sees Chinatown ablaze, saves her 5 children. The second part of the story is about what she learned from her parents. Grandma Emma learned about Chinese herbs from her parents. She had a huge box of roots, seeds, leaves, bark of trees, twigs, and dried fruit. If anyone got sick or wounded, the patient would call her Dr. Lee, which was her nickname, her maiden name, to ask if she could cure them. Emma would make a bitter tea, powder, or paste to treat the patient. Because it was difficult to drink the tea brewed with combinations of herbs, Emma promised a sweet dried plum to suck away the bitterness. She helped people without charge and was kind to everyone. There were no doctors in Fowler. Oh, I don't know what that was on. Okay. The third thing was Grandma the farmer. She spent most of her time when she grew a huge vegetable garden. She grew many kinds of Chinese vegetables: bok choy, Chinese broccoli, Napa cabbage, Chinese chives, Chinese parsley, which is called cilantro, Chinese radish, Chinese turnip, bitter melon, winter melon, snow peas, and chili peppers for her Mexican friends. She nourished her whole family of 12. She shared her harvest with friends and relatives. All you had to say was, "I like," and Grandma Emma would give you a big bag to take home. So that was my grandma's life in the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Really appreciate that. And let's see, I guess Jennifer Townsend never showed up. So we've got a few minutes if you guys want to listen to mine. So,
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
all right. It's on page starts at page 59. And it's titled Over the River. A car comes to a stop on a carpet of multicolored leaves in front of a log cabin. Maggie Winslow greets them from the front porch as her son Ethan and 12-year-old granddaughter Jeannie, along with her 8-year-old twin grandsons Robbie and Benny, join her. "Grams," the boys exclaim as they throw themselves into Maggie's arms. A wide smile brightens her thin, ashen face. "I smell cookies," Robbie says. "Willa just pulled them from the oven," Maggie tells him. He and Benny race into the cabin. Maggie engulfs Jenny in a hug. Jenny appears sullen as she follows after the boys. "Is she all right?" Maggie asks Ethan. "She saw us FaceTime the other day," he explains. "Then she knows," Maggie states. He nods. With a sad expression, he looks around. "Where's Isaac?" he asks. "At the bridge," she answers. "Mind collecting him? Supper will be ready in an hour." Willa's husband, Isaac, nails a wood plank on the base of an old covered bridge spanning a dry riverbed when Ethan joins him. "Glad you and the kids made it okay," Isaac tells him as a smile spreads across his kind black face. Ethan surveys the bridge. "It's been years since it's looked this good. Not since my dad." His voice trails off. "Just needs a coat of paint, which you and the boys can help with tomorrow," Isaac tells him good-naturedly. Silence settles between them as they study the bridge. Ethan eventually speaks in a distant, almost angry tone. "This doesn't have to be her last. She could fight it more than there's still chemo." "Ethan, your ma's one of the, no, Maggie's the most fightin'est woman I know." But there's a time for fighting and a time to know when it's best to put your energy into those you love, Isaac responds. The following day, splattered with splashes of red, Robbie and Benny paint the railing at the bridge, while Ethan and Isaac on ladders paint the housing. Why is there a bridge? Benny asks. There's no water. There was before the dam was built, Ethan answers. And it just leads into the woods, Robbie observes. When the lake was created by the dam, it swallowed up a whole town, Isaac informs them. If you dive down a couple 100 feet, you can still see it. Benny's eyes widen. With the people, he asks. They had plenty of time to clear out, Ethan states. He looks to the corral by the barn where Jeannie feeds a carrot to a pale, speckled mare. She's joined by Maggie. It's hard to believe Jesse's almost 30, Maggie states. Jeannie looks away. I know you know I'm not doing well, Maggie continues. Your dad said you overheard. And you told him not to tell us, Jeannie accuses. It hasn't been a year since your mom passed. It was difficult, the way I wanted to spare you Maggie starts to explain. I don't want you to go, Jeannie sadly admits. It won't be forever, Maggie tries to comfort her. How can you say that? Jeannie demands. How does anyone know? Jeannie, wake up, Maggie whispers later that night. Get dressed and come with me. Outside, Jeannie is surprised to see Jesse hitched to a buggy. Maggie gets in and motions for Jeannie to join her. Jesse pulls the buggy to the edge of the bridge and halts. Maggie gives Jeannie a smile before clicking. Jesse takes off at a run. Grams, Jeannie fearfully exclaims as they near the far end of the bridge. Suddenly, a bright flash of light turns night to day. On the other side of the bridge, Jessie, her coat now a dark, dappled gray, pulls the buggy beside a flowing river toward a village, where Maggie and Jeannie are joyously greeted by the townsfolk. A tall, handsome man takes Maggie by the hand, and a 6-year-old black boy grabs Jeannie's as they lead them into an autumn festival. At the end of the day, Jessie pulls Maggie and Jeannie back across the bridge in the buggy. She passed during the night. Willa, Maggie's longtime friend and helper, sadly tells Jeannie as they, Ethan, Isaac, and the boys gather around Maggie's deathbed. Maggie's face has a peaceful expression. In shock, Jeannie notices the photographs on the dresser. She picks one up. That was taken on your daddy's 10th birthday, when your Grams and Grandpa, Willa softly tells her. The boy was Isaac's and my son, Tommy. Your grandpa drowned later that day, trying to save Tommy. The photo shows young Ethan standing between his father and Maggie with Willa, Isaac, and 6-year-old Tommy. Ethan's father is the handsome man, and Tommy, the little boy, from Jeannie and Maggie's nighttime excursion over the river. Jeannie's eyes widen with amazement as she turns to Willa, who nods and smiles through her tears. And that's it, folks, for our readings. So you can unmute yourself. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and turn off the recording, and then we can visit for a while. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Jerry Fonte, Program Director for Southwest Manuscriptors, and we really appreciate all the participants and all those who have joined us, and we'll view this later. Thank you very much. Hope to see many of you, all of you, and then some next month.
Thank you very much.
Yes. So
Yay.